Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Huttons Valley Permaculture. A few weeks ago I planted out these 3 garden beds with some of my winter veg, but as you can see they're looking like they need a bit of maintenance, so that's what I'm going to do today. But I also thought I'd show you my carrots that I planted 7 weeks ago and show you how they're going, and also show you how my comfrey and artichokes are recovering from the recent activity with those. It appears the netting on this bed is probably not high enough. My leeks are going really well and pushing up through it and probably giving some space to the plants underneath, but it looks like I probably need to just remove the cover or get one that's a little bit taller, but I might just pull it off, give these plants some space to move, and of course get this nasturtium under control. This bed here, the netting is a little bit higher, which is helping. I don't know if you can make out that broccoli underneath, but down this end you can see it's all wanting to burst out. So I think it's about time we got these covers off, see how these plants are going and see what we need to do to support them. I'm going to start with unveiling this bed here and see how all my plants are going. At this point, before the frost sets in, I can cut my nasturtium and use it as a mulch. As soon as a hard frost hits though, that will just crumble to the ground. It's really amazing in winter when that happens. Suddenly you don't have a summer garden anymore. It's definitely turned to winter. So let's get this cover off. Wow. So the nasturtium have loved the recent rains we've had and have really kicked in with the weather that's still, quite warm, although today's cooled off a bit. There is some kale here. Here we go. Here's another brassica. Yes, definitely needed to come out from those covers. These are all needing to stand up a little bit more, but they're looking pretty healthy. So happy with that. Now I did add some parsley to this bed since making that video, and it's starting to kick in pretty well. But as you can see, there's quite a bit of weed that I need to just remove. I have planted the lettuce seed and happy to leave those in place, but this little plant here is a weed that I really need to move on. There was some holes that I didn't tend to, and look at that. That little guy there has gone to town on it. So this is why we need to get in and do some maintenance. And there's another little guy too. And now we can unveil this guy. These little leeks are just starting to kick in. We've had quite a bit of growth from our seeds. We've got lots of radish seeds in, and again I've put in lettuce seeds. I've got someone growing there, not sure what that is just yet. The brassicas are looking pretty good. That's a nice little red cabbage seedling that's coming along there. As expected, my Asian greens, I think that's a pak choi, has already gone into flower. And we've got a little Swiss chard seedling. Red cabbage. Yeah, I think they're Swiss chard seedlings. The lettuce is going well. These leeks are really kicking in. That was the one that was really pushing up the netting. He'll be able to grow a bit better there now. I think that one's a green cabbage. This little cabbage needs to stand up a bit, and I've got some tatsoi which will benefit from a bit more light and space too, I'd imagine. Now this is my little sorrel plant that during summer really dried out and wasn't very happy, but it's got all these lovely leaves starting to kick in. It's looking a lot fresher. We might just have to weed a little bit around it, but it looks so much nicer without all that netting on it. Down this end we've got another little tatsoi, and in amongst here we've got a red mustard plant. What I need to do now for this bed is just go through it and cut down the weeds. I'm just going to cut all this nasturtium at ground level and use the leaves as a mulch for this garden. Now I had lost one of my brassicas in here. I knew it was here, but I've just spotted it. Kind of a bit lost in here, but here it is. You can really see the impact of having all of this nasturtium blocking the light for these little plants. This one here and the little cabbage seedling are quite small compared to some of my other brassicas, which have had a bit more space and light. So that's what the purpose of today is to just give these plants a better chance to thrive. Always good to identify your plants you want to keep before going to town with your sickle. So now that I've cleared the nasturtium around this mustard plant, all I'm going to do is just mulch nice and close right next to it to keep the nasturtiums from sort of invading it again, and that'll break down nicely. You have to be a bit careful around your plants. Like usual, I like to get the mulch off the ground, out of the way, so you can see what's going on, and then add it in around your plant once you've cleared the area. Okay, so now I'll just mulch all around it, and there we go. Now if there's grasses like this one here, I do like to really dig those out as much as I can. Helps to weaken the root system if it doesn't have any of this green on top, so I'll discard that. Kind of gets lost again in there, but hopefully that one will start to kick in a bit more. It's a good time to thin out some plants while you're here as well. Some of these little ones I just pull. I don't worry about the sickle for those. It's just the roots are just down in the compost layer, so you're not disturbing the soil at all. I have tried to weed this plant before, but it's a bit hard to get into it actually. So I'll just do my best again, and that'll have to be good enough. Oh, hang on. There we go. That's better. Okay, so hopefully that plant will kick in again. This bed here is actually pretty good with in respect to the weeds, although the birds are starting to kick it around a bit, so I'll have to keep an eye on that and maybe cover it if they become a problem. So there's just a few little grasses to pull, not too much in the way of nasturtium pressure. I'm quite happy with the spinach at this point. I thought it would just not grow well, but that's starting to stretch high, and I think if I'm going to try just snipping it off a bit down here and see if it will start to branch out a little bit. This is the first time I've grown it, so I'm not too sure, but that's a red spinach. Some little spinach starting to come up, and the radishes are going well. These plants here were actually, I cut off at the base. There's some old cabbage plants, so I don't know how they'll do, but I can always use that as chicken feed if they're starting to impact on the plants I actually planted. And this is a Swiss chard that I cut off at the base too, and that's actually looking really lovely. That'll be nice to harvest from. Okay, I think that bed is done and looking pretty good, except for the bird damage. Push that all back in again. Now we're on to the third garden bed. We've once again just got to identify the plants. So I've got my kale plant there, And I've got another brassica hiding just in there, looking leggy like the other one covered in nasturtium. I mightn't let it go so far next time. I'm hoping with all this mulch around these little plants too, the birds will leave them alone a little bit more. Already when I went inside for a quick coffee, the birds had attacked this garden. So I think the birds are going to be more of an issue than any cabbage moth caterpillar at this point. I've got 2 plants here, so I might just see if I can carefully pull this one out. Not much of a root system. I don't expect that to survive, but it might give this one a better chance of taking off successfully. I'll just grab some from the neighbouring garden and move that around there. Most of the weeds through here can really just be pulled by hand, and then I can be a bit more careful not to get any of the little seedlings coming up. I think I threw lots of lettuce seeds like this one here, and coriander seeds through this garden, so they're sort of starting to come up now. This is a clear flat leaf parsley that I put in after I did the video. Now that's a pak choy, I think, but this is a weed at the back here. Pretty quick and easy with the composted beds to go through and get these little weeds out. It mightn't look like it because I've just left the weeds on the ground, but that garden's all weeded now. In this section here, I've planted some more of my winter veg at a later date than in my other gardens, and I've put some of this duck bedding around it. Now, it wasn't fresh out of the coops, it was a few weeks old, and they seem to be going fine. I have found different information online about using duck bedding, from using it straight out of the duck houses, straight onto the beds, or you know, those sites that say that it's better to compost it. So I'm really just experimenting with the duck bedding. Ducks poo a lot, and their poo actually makes a really great fertilizer for the garden. So I've just really got to learn the best way to go about using it. So I'm going to use this, which isn't fresh out of the coop. It's at least a few weeks old. I'm going to put that around one of my beds and just see how those plants respond. All I'm going to do with it is just around each of these little brassicas, just kind of mulch them. And as it rains, it should wash some of those nutrients down for the plants to access. But at the very least, this will be a great mulch on top of the garden bed. I've just got to avoid all the little lettuce seedlings I've got going. That's all I'm going to add for the duck bedding at this stage, because I don't want to squash all my little seedlings that are coming up, and I've got my lettuces as well. So I've just basically put a bit of duck bedding around my brassicas, and we'll see how that goes. I haven't added it to that garden bed over there, so I'll just do a little bit of a comparison. I've got these 3 garden beds uncovered and a bit of space, and I think they're looking pretty good. In one of my recent videos, I transplanted some artichokes, which I've put into this bed here, and I also cut down the comfrey to use it as mulch. As you can see, the comfrey has grown back really well. There's lots of young new leaves on it, and they're looking really healthy. So I might even get another harvest of mulch before the weather really turns cool and they stop growing. The artichokes are growing really well. Even the tiniest little one has not died. So I'm pretty happy with their progress at this point. About 10 days ago was when these were transplanted. This is the biggest plant I put in, and it's going quite well at from both of these points. I was tempted the last time to take this leaf off, so I'll just do it now because the plant doesn't have the root system in to support those large leaves. But that small pup there is going great. And this little guy here, it's got 3 shoots coming, and all this mulch around it is the comfrey that's darkened over time. This guy here too could do with just a couple extra leaves removed. This little one here, I wasn't sure how it would go. These 2 leaves aren't looking too great, but right in the middle here, I think that one's looking healthy enough, so I have high hopes for it. And the final one we transplanted is this one here. That leaf will probably die off, and this pup isn't looking too happy. Maybe it got stepped on or something. But yeah, I expect that will start to take off shortly. All in all, pretty happy with my perennial bed. In my greenhouse, I've got the 6 artichoke plants that I've potted up. Now, it was probably around 10 days ago that I dug up the main plants and was able to separate these roots away from the main parent plant. And so far, they're looking great. The other garden bed I was going to show you today was the carrot bed, which I planted about 7 weeks ago. And I did have a sheet on it until it germinated and then left it off, but the birds went to town digging it up. So I've had to put these little nets over the top of it to just protect the plants as they were getting bigger. So I'm going to uncover them today and just see how they're going and see if they need a weed, but they probably need to see a bit of light now. Okay, so this is my carrot bed. Down this end is where the birds really dug up the carrots. What I'll do is just replant some more seeds in the rows down there and maybe just cover them over with a small sheet or something. But up this end they didn't get to, and the carrots are coming along quite nicely now. I think they'll benefit from seeing a bit more light, and I'm just going to go through and just carefully weed them. These 3 beds, the birds really dug up. So I'm just going to get some more of my carrot seeds and just extend the plantings along where the birds have got to it. Now, the only other thing in this area I'd like to do is just put another layer of compost in between the rows, because it's close to the soil there. There's not a lot of organic matter on top. So I'll do that. I won't be adding any duck bedding to this because I don't think carrots need that much nitrogen. I think that would just contribute to the tops of the plants getting large and the roots not. I've just grabbed some of my compost out. Now, over summer it did really dry out and the decomposition stopped, so it hasn't broken down, so it's more a mulch than anything else. I'm just going to mulch in between my rows. Hopefully these plants are large enough that the birds won't kick this and bury them all. It's kind of what happened last time. I'm going to just thin it out, not too much, just in case the birds do get out here. A few more seeds to add to this bed. I should have time to get them germinated before it gets too cold. I've got a couple of rows that are going really well, so I'm hopeful for some great winter carrots. Well, I'm happy to have got these gardens uncovered and weeded and giving these plants a chance to take off a lot better now too. I hope you've enjoyed catching up with them, the carrots, the artichokes and the comfrey. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.